What if I tell you that people who grew up in the 1970s think very differently from people today? Not because they are stubborn, not because they are old-fashioned, but because their childhood trained their minds in a very unique way. They grew up without smartphones, without social media, without Google. Yet many of them are emotionally strong, very patient, and surprisingly independent. In this video, you'll discover 7 deep psychological traits of people who grew up in the 1970s. And number 6 might shock you, because it explains why they struggle to understand today's world. So stay till the end. You might recognize your parents, or even yourself. Psychology 1. They are mentally tough. People who grew up in the 1970s learned toughness very early in life. There was no instant comfort, no quick entertainment, no easy escape. If something broke, you fixed it. If life was hard, you endured it. Psychologically, this built strong emotional resistance. They don't panic easily. They don't complain much. They believe suffering is part of life. That's why many of them handle stress better than younger generations. But here's the downside. They sometimes ignore their own emotional pain. Psychology 2. They value hard work over talent. In the 1970s, success was simple. You work hard, you survive. People didn't talk much about passion or talent. They talked about effort. This created a psychology where hard work equals self-worth. If you're not working, they feel uncomfortable. Rest can feel like laziness to them. This mindset made them reliable and disciplined. But it also makes them judge people who choose easy paths today. To them, struggle is proof of character. Psychology 3. They are extremely independent. People who grew up in the 1970s learned to depend on themselves. Children walked long distances alone, solved problems without adult supervision, made mistakes without being protected. Psychologically, this created strong self-reliance. They hate asking for help. They prefer fixing things themselves. They feel uncomfortable depending on others. That's why many of them say, figure it out yourself. But this independence can also make them emotionally distant. Psychology 4. They don't trust change easily. The world they grew up in was slow and predictable. Suddenly, everything changed. Technology, culture, values. This created a psychology of cautious thinking. They don't jump into new trends. They question new ideas. They prefer what has been tested. This doesn't mean they hate change. They just fear instability. Deep down, they want security, not excitement. Psychology 5. They value real human connection. In the 1970s, connection was face-to-face. People talked, argued, laughed together. Psychologically, this built a deep need for real interaction. They prefer phone calls over texting. They value physical presence. They feel lonely in a digital world. That's why many of them say, the people are not close anymore. They don't miss the past. They miss connection. Psychology 6. They struggle with modern emotional expression. This is one of the biggest psychological effects. In the 1970s, emotions were not discussed much. You were told to be strong, to endure, to move on. As a result, many of them struggle to express feelings. They may love deeply, but say it rarely. They may feel pain, but hide it well. This makes them appear cold or distant. But inside, they feel just as much as anyone else. They just never learned how to express it. Part Psychology 7. They respect authority and rules. People who grew up in the 1970s were raised with structure. Rules were strict. Authority was respected. Discipline was normal. Psychologically, this built a strong belief in order. They believe rules keep society stable. They respect elders and institutions. They struggle with today's no-rules culture. This makes them loyal workers, parents, and leaders. But it can also make them uncomfortable with freedom without limits. In conclusion, people who grew up in the 1970s are not outdated. They are mentally trained differently. They carry strength without complaining, independence without attention, loyalty without noise. They are products of a time that demanded endurance. So next time you see someone from that generation acting different, remember, their psychology was shaped by a world that no longer exists. If this video made you think of someone you know, or if you grew up in the 1970s yourself, drop a comment and share your experience. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay curious. Because understanding people starts with understanding their past. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.